Um, so I think there have been about 4 more train derailments since last week. Let's start because I think the people who have been doing the best job at talking about what's happening and also what could be happening. I think the lever has been doing such a brilliant job at calling them out and holding the most powerful people in the world to account. So let's just take a look at what they've accomplished.
Pete Buttigieg was silent on the Ohio derailment. We published our story. Our story went totally viral and prompted a lot of pressure on Pete Buttigieg to do something. His first reaction to that pressure was that he didn't have any power to do much of anything on his own, which is nonsense.
While this horrible situation has gotten a particularly high amount of attention, there are roughly 1,000 cases a year of a train derailing.
So then there's more pressure on Buttigieg. He goes to East Palestine. He wears a hard hat, gets some pictures taken. Then he starts singing a different tune.
Well, a lot can be done.
The pressure continued to build, and Pete Buttigieg finally, belatedly, came out and said, yeah, I actually do have power to do things.
This is a moment when we can get more done than would have been thought possible before.
And then he turns around and backs this new bipartisan Senate legislation. This is legislation being backed by both Democrats like Sherrod Brown and Republicans like J.D. Vance.
Ro Khanna and Chris Deluzio from Pennsylvania just introduced legislation that would expand the definition of high-hazard flammable trains.
Today, my colleague Mr. Khanna and I introduced the Derail Act.
Lever has done an extraordinary job highlighting these gaps in our safety system. That is why I, with Representative Chris Deluzio, have introduced legislation to cover these highly flammable hazardous materials to make our railroads safe.
A Politico reporter who is sort of known for fawning coverage of Pete Buttigieg. He accused us of fundraising off of the disaster.
So the national politics correspondent for Politico is criticizing the investigative outlet that uncovered the corruption at the heart of this story, and at the same time, Politico being funded by the rail industry.
Sirota and everyone else there is doing a fantastic job. Politico is a joke.
Politico has started running new ads from the Association of American Railroads.
It's not like there's, a giant ad for railroads and safety in the middle of this newsletter. No, of course not. Oh, what's this?
Why don't we upset Politico further? And if you have the funds available, please subscribe to The Lever.
Pete Buttigieg, and really any politician, won't do much of anything unless they face relentless pressure.
I love that for so many reasons. One, because of what they actually really did accomplish by highlighting what could be done and the corruption there and the negligence. But also, I feel like a lot of liberals, their first thing is every time you criticize Biden or any Democrat, what you're really doing is helping Trump or Republicans. And for some reason, they refuse to see that if you criticize them and ask them to do their job, they will become more popular. When people see that your government can actually work for you, the few times that Biden's popularity has spiked over the last 2 years were when he actually did something that would materially benefit the people in this country. So by calling them out, by pressuring them, which I know we talk about this and everybody, of course, knows, but they're getting pressure 100% of the time from the people who hate us and who are advocating against all of us, right? From the CEOs, from the oligarchs in our country. They are constantly pressuring these politicians. So every time you let up for a second, you're just giving space to them. We're never going to be able to compete with those oligarchs on a financial level. But what we can do is call out the corruption and demand more. And when you are asking people not to do that, what you're really doing is saying, what the oligarchs want is fine. We just need to cede to them. And every once in a while, incrementally, you might get thrown a bone, but change takes time. And what we know is it doesn't take time. You can give tax cuts to billionaires in a second. You can pass huge, bailouts for banks and airline industry. And, so I really appreciate that the Lever is showing in real time the practice of calling people out and then how that can actually affect change.
Yeah, I mean, for one, they're actually reporting on stuff. So, like, when people criticize excuse me, I was going to say TYT, but when people criticize the lever because David Sirota is a shit lib at the end, he's a sheepdogging. He disagrees with you on strategy, maybe, but he's not sheepdogging. You can't be sheepdogging people when you're drawing people's attention to the problems that Democrats are creating. Now, come election time, you could say, it's wrong that he's doing this to push people to vote for Joe Biden if that's what he does. But like, you have to look at things as they are and think strategically, we're all going to disagree on things.
Right.
But he's actually out there doing the reporting, calling attention to this stuff that needs attention and wouldn't have attention without people. Like, he's got the biggest platform at the moment covering this stuff, and we need more of that for sure. But I mean, like, even that clip, like, I hate TYT. TYT sucks, but there are a lot of good people at TYT.
Right.
They disagree on strategy. There's a lot of bullshit where they're sort of bringing people into the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, like, look at what they're doing at the moment. Look at the reporting. Look at, I don't know. I have so many, the left is so fucked up. Like, we should be able to disagree on stuff and not like,
yeah, and if somebody happens to be on your side for a second, like, I agree. I don't give money to, I used to give money to TYT years ago. I don't anymore. I think Anna Kasparian's been horrible on so many issues, as has Cenk. But like, okay, I mean, if somebody is promoting someone who's doing good work, I'm all for that. Yeah.
Like Roe, Ro Khanna I really have a lot of issues with Roe. Yeah. But on this issue, he's right. So that doesn't mean I'm saying go vote for fucking Ro Khanna. Yeah, it just means, God damn it, this is right. Good. He's pointing this out. More progressive should. You want our support? Point it out. Look, I'm going to give him some points. He gets 6 points or something.
I mean, it took 2 weeks for Biden even to say anything. He says he's not even going to go. Pete Buttigieg at the beginning was only blaming Trump, and he would go on Fox and say these stupid quippy things like, does Biden, or what's his name? Does Trump, or maybe he was talking about the governor, DeWine, even know the difference between a Marshalls and a TJ Maxx or whatever. And then, all the vote blue, no matter who, people are like, oh, owned on Fox, Pete Buttigieg, there's all this really surfacey stuff. Politico did that hit piece on Sirota. Like, can you imagine they're trying to fundraise off their reporting, which of course everyone tries to fundraise, but when you're doing grassroots reporting, you're saying we need more reporting like this. Not what Politico does, where they get paid by the railway industry, allow the railway industry to write their own piece of propaganda and present it as if it's a news article. So, when people don't point that out, then most liberals are like, oh, Pete Buttigieg's doing a good job. He totally owned Fox. And what could he do? I mean, there's one person who follows me, and every time I write anything about Pete Buttigieg, she must follow me only so that she can see and she's like, you don't know what you're talking about. That's not what this is. And all they do is run cover for the most powerful people in the country.
And they're running cover for train wreck after train wreck that could be avoided. We got another one, another Norfolk Southern in Ohio. West Virginia, multiple people injured.
This was today. Yeah.
Yeah. And it turns out that Holcomb, somebody pronounce that for me.
Hochul.
Killed safety rules passed by her Democratic legislation. So they're all, like Pete's out there saying, oh, the train lobby is too powerful. He used that excuse for a while.
Great report showing communities of color bear the toxic air. Bear the brunt of U.S. toxic air pollution. Bakersfield, California is the worst. They expect us to die early from this air pollution. They put everything over here to ensure that we breathe the worst air. I mean, the same with the train tracks, right? Like, if you look at the train tracks always go through the poorest communities, which often happen to be communities of color, but they're also poor white communities. Where they decide to dump all that toxic waste is not in Beverly Hills, right? It's always in the poor places.
And of course, while all this is happening, I mean, the point is the trains, they have the money. They're choosing to profit off of it instead of doing basic repairs. It could be easily regulated by Pete. We know that. Pete, of course, even just interviewed, this. I think this is a CNN article. It could be Politico, but
He's so
he's basically saying, "Oh, I just would rather be out there doing ribbon signing,
cutting ribbons for
I didn't know I would have to
opening
do
ceremonies."
this shit." You know.
By the way, like if he were serious about that, like get the money into people's hands, fix the infrastructure, fix the tracks. There's like and we should show it. I can't find it right now, but it was a series of photographs of dilapidated bridges and posts and tracks. What do you think is going to happen when
he's not looking at any of that stuff.
But like you could be like, hey, we're renovating this bridge. Let's do a ribbon ceremony here. Isn't that great? We're fixing these, streets, this freeway, this whatever. But it's not. He just wants to go to like a fancy mall and have drinks in a wine cave. Yeah.
Well, instead we've got Aaron Brockovich as a special interest terrorist threat in East Palestine
by the DHS. Yep. I mean, I think she was labeled that by the Ohio governor, DeWine, but using the specifications mapped out by the Department of Homeland Security, which calls any environmentalists, anti-capitalist, protesters, domestic terrorists.
Right. And so this is another issue. This is how we reach, in my opinion, centrist Dems who we need to believe, not for electoral politics necessarily, but we just need them on our side on this shit.
Yeah.
So, you've got the Ohio situation, and you have to point out that the press covered this up for almost 2 weeks. Trump got there first. He said, I'm going to come in 10 days. I'll be in Ohio. And nobody on the Democratic side beat him to it. He advertised it publicly. So, this issue points out so many flaws in the Democratic Party and such all the hypocrisy. I mean, the fact that Union Joe and the Democratic Party basically broke the union strike. The union busted on this thing to stop the trail workers who were fighting for more protections and worker rights as well. But Joe broke that up. They literally forced a union to not unionize,
It is so reprehensible. I mean, it's one of the things that when people talk about how grotesque Ronald Reagan was, they talk about breaking a strike and forcing aviation people back on the job, broke their strike, right? And here is the JFK or FDR, the modern FDR, Union Joe. I mean, and Pete Buttigieg was pushing that also, of course. Yeah, no, the other thing is, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, as the bourbon starts speaking.
I know. I'm like, I can see my red face, and that's all I can focus on.
I criticized Bernie a lot on not fighting for the Medicare for all stuff. I mean, the pandemic protections we all need, which is the biggest workers' rights issue come across in his lifetime, probably. I mean, I don't know, that's arguable, but at least right now he's calling the union people to task. He's letting them have their voice in the Senate. So maybe we should show him doing something positive and how union bosses should represent their unions.
How do workers feel about this huge increase in income and wealth inequality and the greed that we're seeing on the part of corporate America?
Well, I can tell you, my members, 1.3 million members nationwide, they provided goods and services to this country probably in the toughest times through the pandemic with total disregard for their safety and the safety of their families when they were going home. They were going out providing parcel delivery, providing food distribution, providing rubbish pickup, providing every essential service that we may take for granted at times. And all the while, all these big corporations like UPS, Republic Waste, Kroger's grocery warehouses, they were making record profits while our members, in some cases, were losing their jobs.
And losing their lives.
Losing their lives, and not gaining in some of these profits that, these businesses and these corporations, which my members feel today that they were taken advantage of. And I think there's a lot of workers, not only unionized workers, but non-union workers that feel the same way, especially in light of what we just came out of.
Yep. I'm glad that Bernie is doing this. We need much more militancy in our union leaders. And it feels like maybe giving some of these people a bit of a platform is asking them to step up into that role. I'm hoping more like what's happening in the UK. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to show the other clip of this guy pushing back against the senator.
The state senator,
Senator CEO.
Senator, you've asked the
You're
question.
out of line.
Let him
man.
answer
Actually,
the
I haven't,
question.
and don't tell me I'm out
You
of line.
are in line.
Don't tell me I'm out of line.
Well, you frame,
don't tell me. I'm
frame,
making a
you
statement.
frame the statement
you need
like
to
a
shut
tough
your
guy.
mouth
Yeah.
because you don't know
You're
what
gonna tell me to
talking
shut my
about.
mouth?
Yes,
Yeah.
I did.
Hold it.
Yeah.
Hold it.
Yes, I
Tough
did.
guy. I'm not
Senator,
afraid of physical.
You don't have
hold
to be,
it.
but don't sit there and tell me I'm out of line.
Because we
Sir,
hold,
that's
we
not-
hold greedy CEOs
that's
like yourself
not-
accountable.
You call me a greedy CEO.
Oh yeah, you are. You want to attack my salary? I'll attack yours. What
go
did you
ahead.
make? What did you make when you owned your company?
When I made my company, I kept my salary down at about $50,000 a year because I invested every penny into it.
Okay, all right. You mean you hid money?
No, I didn't hide. Oh, hold on a second.
Okay, cut.
He said that's out of line. You said
All right,
I
we're
was out of
we're
line.
even, we're even.
We're not even. We're not even close to being even. You think it's smart? You think you're funny?
No,
you're not.
You think you're funny?
No, I never said. Did I smile?
You frame
Did I
your
laugh?
opening
Hold
statement.
on. Let's.
You frame your opening statement
No,
saying you're a
Senator,
tough guy.
continue.
This-
Senator, please
This is
continue your
behavior,
statements.
but sir, this is. I think it's great that you're doing this because
Me too.
this shows their behavior on how they try to come in and
No, I-
unionize a shop.
No, it's
and
just-
they say about intimidation, and it's not about intimidation.
This
It's
may
not the
show your
employee's
behavior
support.
here. But stay on the issue, please.
Gee, Bernie almost called him a name. They're talking about your behavior. Yeah. No, it's good to see that. We need that militancy. We need union leaders not to try to get along with the bosses. They need to be fighting the bosses. We're not friends.
Yeah. So let's get that from progressives too. I mean,
Yep.
all these progressives saying, oh, well, AOC, bring the ruckus. I'll be a one-term senator, and not even talking about COVID protections, not barely fight, she's got her issues, but you can't just have your issues. Like you got to fight for everything, like,
Yeah. Well, she doesn't want relational harm.
yeah. I mean, we have so few progressives fighting for us. I mean, like you got Katie Porter comes back from meeting AIPAC, and her quote is she was extremely impressed with Netanyahu. Like, what the fuck? This is
far right apartheid.
Whose own country doesn't want him.
They're fighting in the streets against him right now, and she is saying that she was impressed by him. I mean, first of all, listen, anybody who supported Warren over Bernie is always just going to be shit in my book. Remember she did her big thing on the steps at the Capitol a couple of weeks ago. She was against the repeal of the salt tax cap, which is just a giveaway for her wealthy constituents. I mean, I don't think she takes money from them, but like that is, I mean, it just, I don't know. I think we, all of my hope right now, poor Shama Sawant, but all my hope right now is in her and this group that she, what is it? The Workers' Strike Party. Because I just don't see it happening on the inside. But at least this is something. I mean, I'm glad that Bernie is doing this now. I think that his heart is in the right place. I think he thinks that this is the way he needs to move forward, and he's got to do what he does. But I think it's really important that we have people on the outside agitating and making these ghouls' lives uncomfortable.
I agree. I mean, I think the biggest disappointment is the people on the inside aren't doing it.
Yeah, I agree.